session, I will start by reading the call of the meeting. The Economic Development and University Relations Committee will conduct a public hearing to discuss the establishment of the Cambridge Taxi Industry Working Group. Good morning. We are joined today by Councilor Mark McGovern, Councilor Lee Chung, Councilor Nadine Mazen, and Councilor and Co-Chair of the Economic Development Committee, Denise Simmons. We're also joined by several members of city staff, including our city manager. We will briefly start by hearing from our city manager. Before we do, I just wanted to make a couple of very important comments. One is that we are here today to help you, and it's important that during this 2-hour period that we run an efficient meeting, that we talk about solutions to a problem that's not only impacting our community, but impacting the state and as well as the country and the world. And if it's one city in America, in the world, that can get this right, it's us. And so I want you guys to see us as your allies and not as individuals or elected officials or a city that's against you. So my hope is that we are going to come up with some really important solutions to some very complex and complicated problems. And I can't stress enough, we've got to work with each other, we've got to move forward, okay? So we will hear from our city manager who testified yesterday at the State House hearing, and then we will go to other city staff, and then we'll hear from members of the taxi industry. And I don't know if there's anybody here from Uber or any of the transportation network companies. Raise your hand. All right, Mr. Manager. Yes. Yes, this meeting is being audio and visual recorded.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. For those who don't know me, I'm Rich Rossi. I'm the city manager. Yesterday, I, along with the mayor of Somerville, police commissioner in Boston, and many other members of the legislature and the industry testified before a committee in the legislature about this whole issue of TNCs in the cab industry. From the city of Cambridge point of view, the testimony involved what we consider to be two really important factors. One is the public safety of our residents, visitors, and users of transportation services. So we tried to express to the legislature that that is absolutely paramount and very important. The other thing we stress to the legislature is that, Cambridge is very much a tale of two cities. It is one city that has a very young population, very tech savvy, very interested in innovation and technology, and that segment of the population is clearly moving towards transportation network companies. They enjoy Uber. They like to use that service, and I believe that service, if properly regulated, will continue to grow based on the young population that's coming. On the other hand, there is a segment in our city, many people who have grown up, and this goes back over 90 years, relying on the taxi industry. That's been their salvation. The taxi industry has provided them with their transportation needs for as far back as all of us can remember. And it would be a shame if one survives and the other fails. So what we said to the legislature is, this is about establishing what we consider to be a level playing field. You need to promulgate rules and regulations that affect the newer technologies in a way that equalizes them with the requirements that we have put on the taxi industry in order to make sure that customers are appropriately protected and safe in using these services. That's why you license these services. So that is sort of the essence of the testimony. We talked about, you heard the Mayor of Somerville, when he was testifying, talk about the relative unfairness of taking rides to the airport and having to come back, with a dead cab, no allowance to be able to pick up passengers, what a disadvantage that is, while yet communities like Cambridge contribute to the economy in the same way as the city of Boston. We talked about a lot of things that I think are germane to this discussion that will make this an opportunity. Hopefully, if the legislature acts, we've asked them to act quickly. We've asked them not to delay this because every day lost, obviously, is going to be a difficult situation. So I think we said that, we see Uber and TNCs moving forward in this world, but they need to be regulated so that the cab industry can once again move forward too. And in doing that, we talked about what we consider to be the essential differences that is happening right now. That the insurance standards for TNCs and drivers aren't equal. Currently, the insurance for taxis is regulated through the State Division of Insurance. There were rigorous background checks and permitting system for all TNC drivers that were recommended. Cambridge cab drivers and the city staff all work together, and there are Corey checks, there are RMV checks for drivers that must not have felony convictions, drug or alcohol, and no more than 4 moving violations in 7 years. That's the standard that we have used, that all of you have gone through as you get.
Is that a national check also, like they were talking about?
So what we were talking about is what we do in Cambridge. There were many people who were testifying, not many, but different opinions as to some communities require fingerprinting, other communities don't. I think what we're hoping for is that they could standardize all this so that you don't get all these mixed messages about, well, Cambridge does this, Boston does that, Somerville does this. We would advocate strongly for a system that really has the same basic requirements, and I think that's what the Mayor of Somerville and I were trying to say. The more you can standardize the region, the more effective it's going to be for the cab industry. So we talked about that. We talked about the vehicle inspections. Now, we require 2. Some communities require 1, and the TNCs don't get inspected by us. Again, we think that's a serious issue. Standards to ensure the accessibility of vehicles. You all know that we've come to an agreement where we have accessible cabs available 24/7 in Cambridge. We want the same kind of requirement to be put on the TNCs. The pricing disclosure system, I think, really is very important. People need to know what their fare is going to be. People need to understand these hidden charges and the fact that they have the ability to just balloon the charges at any time. There was significant testimony by members of the legislature about what they thought the unfairness and inappropriateness of that for consumers. And we suggested a municipal advisory board on TNCs that would involve, I think the bill that the governor has includes Cambridge and Somerville and Boston. Some of the members of the legislature said, what about communities down the Cape? What about communities in the western part of the state? Of course, we would welcome that, as long as there's a process where we could all talk about what our specific needs are and that was being addressed. So we believe that if the legislature would act swiftly and support the bill that the governor and his administration are presenting, I think that maybe is not everything that every person might want, but I think it's a huge step forward, and I think it moves this into an arena which does create this balance and does create this equity for both industries. So that, essentially was what the testimony was, and we tried to emphasize that these are very hard times for taxi drivers, and the sooner the legislature can act, the better off the whole industry and the consumers will be, right? Because we have a definite concern about consumers and what they know and don't know. I think if you accept a service in Cambridge, you assume that the city of Cambridge has put its blessing on it. And you assume that that comes through licensing procedures. And we're trying to say now that is not the case. We attempted to take this to court, and I guess to our surprise, we thought that we had presented a valid case, and we lost that case. And we then really tried to put our efforts into working with the legislature. I formed a group with the local mayors and managers in the metropolitan region, and we met a few times. We all came up with this package, and we we met with the governor and the Metropolitan Area Planning Council and the mayors and managers from the region, met with the governor and asked the governor to move this along, and that was back in April. So the legislative process is slow. So I think to the extent that any of us can influence that process to move along is going to be to everybody's benefit. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. I just have a quick question for you. I know that there was some conversation about an assessment based on the revenue that's generated by the TNCs. I just wondered if there was any conversation around that and what piece of the legislation do you see TNCs being opposed to?
You know, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of, I think there's a split decision in the legislature about how far to go with some of these things. And I know there was some testimony about, you know, what's going to happen financially to people who have, you know, large mortgages on their medallions. And again, it's not clear to me as to what they can come up with, but I would say we as a community would certainly participate and try and help the legislature in any way to work on these issues because we know they're important issues. I mean, I think this is going to take a united effort. This is going to take the city of Cambridge and its taxi industry and Uber, you know, working together, not against each other, right? So a divided house is easy to defeat. When you're united, I think you can express a lot. And if Cambridge is united, and Boston, and Somerville, and Brookline, and Revere, as we grow that, if we get the whole region on board, then I think the legislature is hearing from an awful lot of people that these issues need to be dealt with.
My name is,
Just hold on, so we're going to actually hear from city staff first, and we're going to go to you guys, okay? That's okay. Thank you, Mr. Manager. Elizabeth, would you like to join us? Just add a few comments if you could.
Well, I think the manager really expressed very well what the main points of the discussion was. I think one of the biggest challenges is that Uber has come to the table saying it's either regulate us our way or you won't regulate us at all. And one of the other issues that was brought up is how they do their background checks. They claim they do very thorough background checks. We've never seen them. We know they're farmed out to a third party. We don't know how far they go. So it's just information they put out there, but they're not willing to back up.
Thank you. Anybody else from city staff? Okay.
Just in terms of the question on the surcharge, my feeling was that the state would at some point probably levy something if there is a consensus bill in order to administer the program, but it is also up to cities to levy their own additional surcharges for their own processing and other things. So we would probably be a part of that, but they're going to push back against anything that takes a substantial chunk of their profits away, so it's going to have to be something that's in keeping with probably a national conversation on what many other cities are doing.
If I may, Mr. Chair. So there was concern in the legislature from members of the committee about essentially, is the state going to do something now that is going to cause the state administration to be spending significant dollars? And I think, you know, although that doesn't get really answered yesterday, I think that the sort of the mood there is that that's not where they want to go. So they're going to probably push this back, as you were suggesting, on cities and towns or on, you know, the Commonwealth to come to some sort of concrete decisions around how this will work.
Thank you, Mr. Manager. So we'll now hear from members of the cabinet here, unless any of my colleagues want to make a comment beforehand.
Just a quick question, and maybe the city manager can answer this through you to the city manager. I'm just interested, and one of my greatest concerns has been insurance. We have not yet, I know I've asked, a number of my colleagues have asked about the insurance policy. I've even gone to the state trade association for insurance companies to ask, and no one has seen their policy. And I think that we should use our subpoena power of the council to demand that we see their insurance policy, because there are people that are at risk. And it just drives me a little crazy because people get in the car assuming certain things that are not the case. If you get in a cab, you're insured. If you get into an Uber, you may not. And there's been an incident where the Uber policy did not cover, nor did the policy of the vehicle cover, and the family was out of luck. And so to me, that's huge. So I just wanted to know from our city manager, did that question of insurance come up at the hearing? Did anyone speak to it? And is it still out there? Because it's not been taken up by the state. We certainly must take it up and use our subpoena powers to demand that Uber and the other rideshare programs present their policies so that we can examine them by our legal team.
So, through you, Mr. Chair, a lot of testimony and conversation from members of the legislature yesterday about the whole issue of insurance. It's all over the map. There was some testimony that some of this insurance is not attainable under Massachusetts law. That's all being reviewed by the state. There were issues about the fact that they may be insured, but it's the same question you're asking, which is where is that evidence? So where can we put it on the table and say, yeah, this satisfies the city of Cambridge? So I believe this is definitely something that the legislature will tackle. And I think their approach is to grant them their licenses under DPU. And again, there are members of the legislature who wonder, why is it DPU? Why isn't it other agencies, et cetera? That all seems to be what's going to go through the Sept to be straightened out at the state level, but definitely an examination and a concern for what you've raised.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, to the city manager. I guess for me and to my colleagues, I don't know, we put a moratorium on their ability to operate until we know they're properly insured. That is a huge, huge issue. And then you have to know what question to ask. Because if I say, oh, Mr. Rossi, do you have insurance? And you say, yes, it's a private passenger auto policy. It doesn't cover. It doesn't cover. And that's number one. The second piece is, what's the overall policy, the master policy that Uber says that they have? Is it a commercial policy? Is it a commercial auto policy? What is it, and to what degree does it protect the driver and the passenger, as opposed, is it just covering Uber as an organization? Those are questions, as far as I'm concerned, and I don't want to be anti-technology or anti-youth, because I have to admit, my kids think, if you can't get it here, you can't get it anywhere, because that's just where they live. They exist in the 21st and the 22nd century. That being said, however, I think it's extraordinarily important that we push down and push back, or push on the state legislature to say there is jeopardy, there is liability, there's an exposure here. So either you come up with an answer soon, or you have to slow them down, stop them, until they present the evidence that they are properly covered. I think that is mandatory.
So we have already reported that to the legislature and to the governor. I think they concur with Cambridge and other communities that that is an issue they are trying to get to the bottom of. We may want to repeat that again. Maybe we could create for the council a resolution which we would send to all our reps and senators, telling them this is what is of concern to us, and we can do that and have that prepared for a council
So,
meeting.
Mr. Chair, I'll let the floor go. I think that's something that, I'll certainly, I think my is here, I'll have him fashion a council order that, because we're in a meeting, I can talk to my colleagues, that we all can co-sponsor, saying that the issue of insurance is huge. And either they come up with some legislation to address it, or maybe, and I know it's strong to say, but I want to get the legislature's attention, then we want a moratorium, or at least talk to our delegation, because I just think it's a huge loophole that they have taken advantage of. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Council Simmons. Council Rossi.
Very briefly, totally concur with everything Councilor Simmons said. I think it wouldn't be inappropriate to make it a subpoena. I just want to see how those go. I think it's a power we should exercise regularly when people are, I think they're happy to share their data if you make them. Right? It's like they have it.
We've asked them, and they haven't shown us. It has to be about making it.
Yeah, exactly. So we should do that. And my understanding of it, the way they claim it is that it is kind of an umbrella policy across their whole
See, so when Uber says, well, you know, I think it's, well, I can't say what I think it is, because we're my company. I believe, it talks about standards. You can't have almost identical industries. It's all livery. Whether you're a taxi cab or you're Uber, at the end of the day, it's all livery, which is you are transporting a person for a fee. Cash may not transpire, or go through each other's hands, but it is a ride for a fee. It makes it livery. If it's going to be livery, then the insurance should be identical, because the liability, in my mind, now someone tells me different, is identical.
Thank you. Just before we go to Councilman Kelly, I just wanted to acknowledge Councilman Kelly, who's also with us, who just left the room. And is there anybody here from Uber? No, so I'm a little surprised that there's no one here from Uber. One point that I just wanted to add to Council Simmons, and I totally agree with what you're saying, is that we have to also better understand how many Uber and TNC cars are operating within the city at any given time. We know how many cabs we have in Cambridge, we know how many delivery cars we have in Cambridge, but we do not know how many Uber cars are operating within any given time. So that's something that I'd like to also get information about. Councilman Governor.
Thank you. Thank you all for being here as well. I want to just make one quick point before you guys speak, because I hope it's something you can address, and then I'll make some more general comments about all this later. But, I think that there are a couple different conversations that we have to have. I think you will find unanimous support on the council for the types of regulations that we're talking about here, and evening the playing field. I don't think that I can't imagine there's going to be a lot of disagreement about that. So that's one conversation about how do we do that. But the other conversation, I know a lot of people who use Uber, and not once has anyone said to me, I take Uber because they don't do criminal records checks. I take Uber because they're not properly insured, right? They take Uber because it's convenient. They take Uber because it's easy. They take Uber because they don't deal with the dispatcher. They take Uber because they get a ride in 2 minutes instead of 15 minutes. They take Uber because it's new and exciting, and they haven't yet had a bad experience in Uber, but that I'm sure will come, and we know that that does happen. So the other conversation we have to have is, and I was very excited to see the app get launched. I know that there are some bugs that have to get worked out, and that's going to, it's going to take some time. But the other thing I want to hear from you is, what do we also do to help you win back customers? Because we can regulate Uber all day long, but that's not going to drive people back to taxi cabs. And at the end of the day, that's not going to put more money back in your pocket. What's going to put more money back in your pocket is showing the residents of Cambridge that you are better, that you are a better option, that you are a more convenient option. And I'd like to hear how we can be of help with that, because I do want to help you. And I think the council wants to help you. It's impossible to listen to your testimony about mortgages and not being able to put food on the table and losing insurance for your kids and not be incredibly moved. But regulating Uber isn't necessarily in and of itself going to be the answer. So I think part of this conversation, part of this task force also has to be about how do we better market the taxi industry? How do we better partner with you to make sure that people understand that you are a competitive and viable option to Uber? So I'd like to, when you make your comments, if you can sort of think about, helping me at least, how can we do that? How can we help you, rise up to what they're supposedly offering? And then I have some just more general comments at the end. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman. We're going to go to Councilman Kelly.
Thank you very much. I'm going to broaden the discussion just a little bit and comment that Uber, taxis, Lyft, and dispatch services are perhaps the first major intersection of government regulation and private business in an internet-driven world, and we're going to see more and more of that with dispatch services probably, but also retail outlets. You can buy alcohol online now and have it delivered. We're going to see it with lodging houses. We're going to see it with a lot of things, and I think this Uber discussion, and I use Uber as shorthand for the whole type of service that they provide, This Uber discussion should be viewed by the rest of us as an example of the cumbersome nature of the way government deals with fast-moving things. And as we talk about regulating Uber and taxi industry in general, we might want to think about looking forward, not just to the future of this industry, but similar industries that are going to be challenged by the way the internet allows us to do business so that we can be more responsive in the future. This discussion has been going on for years, and we really haven't gotten anywhere, and we need to learn to be much, much faster on this stuff for everyone's sake. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Kelly. We're now going to go to members of the taxi industry. For the record, if you could state your name and your address. And before we do, I just wanted to echo what Councilor McGovern said, that we have to see you guys elevate your game a little bit, and I want to hear some conversation about how you guys see yourselves becoming more competitive and really focusing this conversation more about you guys and improving your service. Councilor Chung, before we go to
Just wanted to also echo what my colleague said, and also I think to the manager, so it's not just the additional problem is that so we don't have the streetcars aren't picking up, but when they're not picking up, instead of staying in taxi cab zones, which they are doing that too, which they also should not be doing, but if they're not doing that, I often see them sitting in parking spots where we have the street parking, the metered coins, so they're taking up spots that are there for people to go and support our businesses, and they're idling there. And that's also, I think, problematic part of the unlevel playing field, is we don't taxis do that.
So one of the proposals yesterday, excuse me, that I thought was really worthy was that Uber would have to be marked in the same way that a taxi cab is marked. And I think that's really important, and that would allow people to see what that vehicle is doing and allow, park control officers and police to tell them you can't just sit there, and they would have to abide by that. I think that's very important.
Thank you. So we're going to first, I'm going to start with Nelson. Maybe we can work our way around the table.
Okay, my name is Nelson Hernandez. I live in Somerville, Cambridge operator, owner.
Nelson, state your full address for the record, please.
126 Pennsylvania Ave, Somerville, Mass. 02145. All right. With the insurance part, what they were talking about over there was that they were talking about an umbrella, that they wanted a hybrid. It goes on and off. That doesn't work. A lot of these, or most of the problem with this Uber TNC is that people want to work part-time. They want to work 15 hours and make 40 hours a week pay. We work 40 hours or more to make our money. And they just want to get a free ride in with the insurance policy. They don't want to pay insurance. They don't want to do a background check. They don't want to do anything. Just like she said. They'll do stuff if you make them do things. If you don't make them do things, they're not going to do anything. They'll just ride over. That's what happened. And I believe when you went to court, you went for distance. Because they were using their phone. That was the fight. If you had put more stuff in it about, more like we're doing now, basically we wouldn't be here right now, bro. Because what happened was, you just would have stopped it right away. But they didn't know what was going to happen. It's nobody's fault. But basically, they stopped us because they were using a meter device on a phone. That was basically what the fight was about. They don't want to do a background check. They don't want to use fingerprints. I don't see why. If you can't put your fingerprint, I got a fingerprint already. And most of the people that drive cabs, they're all fingerprinted anyway. Because they come from other places. So if you go to get a passport, wherever, you have to use a fingerprint. So I don't see why they can't do it. The only reason why they can't do it is they got bad records on their driver records, or they got something going on. If they have things to hide, they shouldn't be here in Cambridge. We got all these college kids. It's a safety issue. Big safety issue here. Anything can happen. I understand it's convenient with the Uber thing. Yes, it's very convenient. You hit the phone, blah, 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 it's here. They don't want to talk over the phone anymore because, like you said, there are children that are getting hurt. Only the old people are the ones that pick up their phone. So they let off all the young people. We need limited numbers here. There's no way that we can have a whole bunch of these Uber cars driving around. And we need enforcement. Very, very much need enforcement. Because They're all parking on the cab stands, they're all over the place. People, half of those Uber cars don't even know how to pick up. They pick it up in the middle of the street, they block the bike lanes, they block everything. But since they're not, since the police can't really enforce this, because they're not allowed to, or whatever they want to do, that's the reason why we got all these traffic jams. We got traffic jams, these stop here in the middle of the road, they hit their flashers, bang, 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 bang. And then when you tell them to move, they get an attitude, oh, from Uber, who cares? So, you know, how are you going to deal with people like that? The only way we can do is by regulating them. And the same thing as you say for us to make it a better cab system. First of all, we have to fix a lot of other things that are involved. All the hotel industries right now, all they do is produce for Uber. They don't talk about the cabs. And it's not maybe the inside the hotel, but they have to educate these concierge. And you got Uber cars sitting in front of there. And what happens is when people walk out, oh yeah, you want Uber? And we're sitting there, and what happens? We get a job to the Marriott, and the other one goes to the airport. What's going to happen is the cab drivers are going to say, when they come up to the stand and they get a short job like that, they're going to say, no, I'm not going to do it. That's what we're going to have to start doing that. Because that's the only way we're going to fix this community. We don't want to do it. Because then you're going to have a whole bunch of complaints in the city. You got to come over here and say, oh, the cab drivers are bad guys. But you got to fix the hotel industry. Before we can fix ourselves, we have to fix other things too. Because it's just not the cab drivers. They give us a bad rap. Oh, these cab drivers are this, this, and that. But we got cleaner cars than those Ubers. We got better cars than those Ubers. We got green, efficient cars. So I don't see what the point is. It's the bad rap and what people want to say. But we need, if anybody, the hotel should market the cabs. Because we're there when they need to be short jobs, when it's snowing, and we charge the same price, not that surge pricing, that, oh, it's snowing, okay, well, you gotta pay 5 times. I understand it's convenient, you know, as I see, you know, Cambridge, I was here born in Cambridge. I've seen all this go up. I know we're growing. Yeah, we need a little help here and there, but we don't need that bombardment that they did right now. You know, technology's here, yeah, I can deal with technology. I don't have a problem with that. But the main thing is that we have to work together. But at the same time, as you want to make a committee with everybody here, with hotels and all this, like I was on before. I was on one of those committees before. This is the first time they made this committee. But there was no real result. Because it was basically a backdoor to put everything else through. But if we want results, that we want to spend time, we need to see results also, because I can't come here and then waste my time and say, oh, well, okay, we'll think about this. But the hotels, the people, we take care of the elderly, we take care of everything with disabilities. Uber doesn't do that. What they do yesterday, they brought in something for disability, they brought in something for older people, something that they're not doing. All of a sudden now they see that they have to do something, so they push them to do it. They don't want to take the dogs, we have to take those dogs. You know, and some of those dogs are pretty good trained. They just bang, they get on the floor. But some of those dogs jump all over the seat. And then you come in with your suit on, and you got dog hair all over you. And what can we do? We have to wipe them down every time they come in? It's not easy. But I'm not going to take too much more of your time. But the insurance and the safety, we need insurance. The Corey checks, and if they got to do fingerprinting, I don't have a problem with that. I can do that anytime you want. And we need to limit the numbers, and this is a safety issue for the children that are coming right now. There's a lot of college kids in here. We don't want, something happens to them with no insurance, they're going to come after the city. Who else are they going to come after? They have to come after somebody. That's all I got to say. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Nelson. We're going to work our way around the table, but I just want to, if I could, just remind you, try to keep your comments, brief and concise, and try not to repeat each other so that we can try to see if we can come up with some game plan after your testimony, okay? So, good to see you.
Peter Scheinfeld, 20 Lee Street here in Cambridge. I'm a Boston Medallion owner, and I was at the hearing all day yesterday, and I'm on Mayor Walsh's Taxi Advisory Committee for Boston. And one thing that was very important, Manager Rossi and a number of councilors have already pretty well summed up most of what happened at yesterday's meeting. But let me just point out one thing. The 2 big items which were under discussion there were 3551, Bill 3551, and Bill 3702. The majority of people wanted 3702. The differences are 3551, the governor's bill, was rather weak, and it did not force the level of qualification demands forced upon TNC drivers, which taxi cab drivers face now anyway. So that really just polarized the group, to be honest about it. And the 3702, which is the 4A, Linda anyway, and Mike Moran, the bill which was Senator 4A and Rep. Moran put forth calls for much stronger enforcement and much more stringent requirements. And that is the real big difference. And that the crew in the hall there. In fact, I see a couple of gentlemen here with the yellow T-shirts that I had run them to, and or you had an Uber or Lyft T-shirt. So it was kind of like almost a sports game. It was the colors the players wore didn't separate them. Anyway, that was the big difference. It's been addressed here. Picking up on what Councilor Simmons said a few minutes ago, and Mark Boucher, who testified to great degree yesterday, he is one of the owners of Lighthouse Insurance, which insures, as a lot of you guys know, a huge number of Boston cabs, and quite a few Cambridges, and from some of our other places as well, and liveries and limos and vehicles for hire. They've been in the insurance business for them for years. The point he made is there is no product currently available which does what Uber claims its insurance does. And Uber, it has my read on the situation, and this may be viewed as somewhat subjective, but my read on the situation is that Uber has an insurance policy which protects Uber, doesn't protect anyone else. All that happens is that you can't sue Uber. That's it. If you have the misfortune of driving somebody and like the fellow who ran over the kid in Frisco, I believe it was a year ago now or more. He was left holding the bag in more ways than one. But the point is that the questions that Councilor Simmons raised are 100% valid, and that's one more aspect of what has to be squared away. Now, I have submitted to our committee, our 24-member committee, and I arrived yesterday at the House Financial Services, a Joint Financial Services hearing, which is what the committee that actually helped conduct the hearing is. One of the members there, Representative Russell Holmes from Boston, is on the committee with me and 22 other people, along with a few other of its members who are in the audience. Now, Russell is on that committee as well. And one thing that came up over and over and over again, and I think would apply very well here to Cambridge, is a unified app. In Boston, we have 1,825 cabs, 6 major radio associations, and it's so often that a person will call Boston Cab, and then call Top Cab, and then call this one, that one, the other one, and they just take the first one to show up. That means who knows how many other no-goes went out, and the driver had to chase it and all this, and he lost time. Everybody loses. A unified app with the 257 cabs, well, actually less the waves, on one given number, so that you can push let's get into the 21st century here, you push your smartphone, and instead of Uber, you have Cambridge Taxi. Now, in the thing that I submitted to our committee is based on the model of ACT, which is, okay, we have, 7 waves, and they're scattered around in ownership, but they all deal with a singular response. You need a wave, you call the ACT number, period. And that's, we think, expand that notion out. So what we suggested on the Boston side was, okay, to be sure, it's an 8 times larger shtick here, but it's the same idea. You have 100 waves instead of 7. But aside from that, though, you dial one number. If you want a wheelchair, you hit the wheelchair button, where you have both a telephone and an app, so that whether you're on your computer at home, whether you're on your cell phone, or whether you're on your telephone, we just don't have any accommodations for carrier pigeons and things like that. But you can get a hold of a cab, and quick service is what the big appeal, one of the big appeals of Uber and Lyft. Uber, as someone had mentioned, I use that as kind of a collective. Dennis?
Yes, I just want to again remind, we only have about an hour left, and we're not going to get through public comment as well as the roundtable if we don't speed it up a little bit. I don't want to impose the time limit, but I just try doing that if we can't keep it to 3 minutes.
Okay.
Okay.
I'm just about through. The ACT model, I think, is a tried-true one to use. Enforcement is critically important. Defining the difference between a street hail and a pre-arranged hail, however you want to define it, that's where the big vague area comes up. It's defining that, because the street hail is the province of the taxi cab, and the pre-arranged vehicle, anybody can set up a livery service, but that has to be defined, and also regulating the number of vehicles that are out there. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good morning, and thank you very much for letting us speak, Mr. Chairman. My name is Richard Carboni. I live at 21 Eugene Drive in Winchester, Massachusetts. I've been a general manager in Cambridge in the Inn at Harvard and the Harvard Square Hotel for the past 24 years. And I'm currently the Cambridge School President, Taxi School President, for the past 20 years, which is a volunteer position to try to help new cab drivers attend this Cambridge Taxi School. They pay a small fee. The school has been very successful, and I think only in Boston and Cambridge are the two places that have the Cambridge Taxi School. Currently, the livery services, and I'll include the livery and Uber, they're not required to attend the Cambridge Taxi Schools. And what has been discussed so far by City Manager Rossi and the other city councilors is the taxi cab industry is united to regulate and for public safety have the same standards for these livery services. We'll call them all the same, livery and Uber, as the Cambridge taxi industry, and it was well defined by the city councilors what those regulations are. One of the biggest problems that I see as a hotel manager is that the Uber pricing is lower than the cab pricing. That's a problem for our industry because it should be uniform across all industries. I run a hotel. I'm a very hands-on general manager. I'm on the floor. I watch my guests in the morning from 7 o'clock. When they call Uber drivers can't find the Harvard Square Hotel. They don't know where it is. The guests wait for it. I've got 2 college-age daughters that use Uber. We're not against Uber, okay? We just want them regulated just like our industry is regulated, the same exact way, so that the revenue is the same, the pricing is the same, and all the standards that the cab industry follows should be the same as these other services. How that gets done through the government, you're really working on that very hard. You're on the right track. And the other comment that you made about modernizing the Cambridge taxi industry, because Uber came in and really took a lot of business from us by underpricing, and it's a very easy app to use. The young people love it. I've got a daughter in college in Baltimore. It goes on her credit card. I get the bill. I see where they're going. That's great. But I want her safe too. And the public safety part of it has to be addressed. And if going to the airport from Harvard Square is $45 by cab, it's a flat fee. How can Uber charge $25 and take the business away from our brothers and sisters in the cab industry? That really isn't a fair situation. So I think you've well defined the public safety concerns, the regulatory concerns. Understand that the cab industry is united. They want the same thing. We don't want Uber to go away. We just want to have a fair competition with Uber, and they get charged the same. Uber should go to the Cambridge Taxi School and pay the $50 fee. It's a 3 or 4 day school, and get educated on Cambridge and public safety and accessibility and dogs and all the things you guys mentioned. They should have the same insurance, the same Corey checks. If my daughter gets into an Uber car, I want to make sure that driver is not just some part-time flake that wants to make money but doesn't understand what to be a taxi driver is. These guys really don't know what it is. It's a fast way to make a buck, but they're not professional drivers.
Thank you.
And thanks for your time.
Quick question, brief answer. Why are cabs more expensive than Uber? What is it that creates that?
Well, the city sets the meter rates. I don't want to speak out of turn, but maybe the counselors can answer this better. The meter rate is set by the license commission and the city. And it's not set with the Uber cars. And like was mentioned, they balloon it during demand periods and they go lower during non-demand periods. And these guys are poaching fares.
And how do we arrive at that rate? I know a lot of it is based on distance, but how do we maybe Elizabeth can help me a little bit with this? But I'm just, because I know with Uber you have the price surge and a lot of it is based on demand. But the meter rate is not based on demand, it's based on distance. So help me really quick to understand how we can maybe make that a little bit more uniform.
So the meter rates are based on time and distance. And the rates are arrived at with input from the industry based on how many years it's been, what gas prices are, just cost of living increases, those types of factors. Yeah, and the insurance.
Thank you. Thank you.
And one more thing, when Uber gets established and this pricing's not regulated, they're going to raise their prices. They're getting the customer used to Uber now. Great, I love Uber, it goes on my credit card, I see where they are, I can watch where they're coming. We can do all the same things in the taxi industry.
Better yet, what's going to happen eventually is the Uber drivers are going to be in there just like you guys because they're not going to be any Uber drivers. The cars are going to show up without a driver. Okay, that's the next piece of technology, and they're actually already working on that. Next.
My name is Balwinder Gill, and
For the record, please, name.
my name is Balwinder Gill, and I live on Everett 41 Walden Street. I'm owner operator of a taxi. I own few taxis in Cambridge. I understand everybody else is going to talk about how to regulate, counselor and my colleagues. They will explain give you everybody's idea how to, regulate, Ubers and whatever. But my main concern, I'm going to tell you, is about how we're going to survive. Because before we were charging like $70 per ship. Now we don't have a drivers. We lower our ship rate to $50. Even though we lower the rate to $50, still we are short on the drivers. We don't have a drivers. If we don't have a drivers in Cambridge, how am I going to pay my mortgage? So what city of Cambridge, how you going to help us, the medallion owners, to deal with the bank, or are you going to deal with the bank? Or reconstruct the loan, lower the interest rate. That's we need immediate help. I don't know how long will take, rule regulation come to an effect, and then things will get better.
I have one quick question just regarding that. I know that when we went through the mortgage crisis back in 2006, 7, and 8, the federal government came up with a loan modification program. Has there been any discussion with the banking industry around a loan modification program with regards to the medallions, any of that? And just think about that question when we get back around to you, but if you can answer that briefly.
Okay, yes, I had spoken with the bank, but what they did they extend the term of the loan, but they did not lower the interest rate or reconstruct the loan or modify the loan. I don't know how long we're going to survive before your regulation come to effect. So maybe we will already wrapped up the medallion. So that's Meantime, please, you have to take care about the bank. I don't know who's going to in charge and who's going to call them, reconstruct the loan. Otherwise, it will take time to come in effect.
So a really important element and a piece of the working group is going to be trying to arrange for the banking industry, those that you deal with on a daily basis, to be part of this conversation so that they can come up with some solutions to some of the questions that you've raised and work with us as a city around that particular issue. Okay, so just want to make sure that I don't know if there's anybody here from the banking industry. Okay, so we've got to make sure that they come to the table as well. Okay, so next.
Good morning, my name is Dave. I live in 14 Sterling Square, South Boston, Massachusetts. Zip code 02128. Yesterday was the meeting from the morning till night. Thank you, Mr. Elizabeth Lynn, and Mr. Mayor was there to testify. Couple things, Commissioner Boston was testified, and who were resisting, especially on the price, searching, and the insurance. And people was all kind of fairy tale about I just gonna drop off my children, can work in couple hours, flexible, all those kind of things. You have to understand, like my colleague, Mr. Gill, and everybody, George was mentioned, he's gonna mention, we barely can finding a driver. There's nobody available to running the taxi because of there is a technically federal crime. They fixing the price. They're telling the customer $1.15 we charging, but they will coming around, they will saying as a surcharges. As you can see, Cambridge, they were giving us very good $5.55 per first mile, $3.60 per additional each miles. It's printing on the side of the taxi, this big flyer on the back of the taxi. Anything is more than 10 miles is flat rate book. We request from panel here, we just need to put the price exactly same thing on these people. And another thing, mandatory LV, all these ex-Uber, livery plate, end of the story. Why is so complicated on them? And if we're gonna make money, they're gonna make money, and when they go airport, also they're gonna pay the toll on us. And the state gonna make money. And the insurance, and Council Simmons was mentioned yesterday, nobody get around their insurance. And also you can try it, they can give you guys all kind of email, their insurance out of California. Nobody get around their insurance till this day. You can do anything, they don't have any kind of insurance out of Massachusetts. So if they're gonna getting LV plate out of here, then all the problem is finished. So just one thing, three things gonna go hand to hand. Livery plate, please. The rate will be exactly same as a taxi, and also limited of number of the car. And I will address to Mr. Governor, Chair, we have already app. We need you guys help on that too, marketing for us. Mr. Thibault already spent a lot of money. We have an exactly app, the way of app. Is on the daily basis app we testing right now. A lot of our cab, they already downloaded. It's on the iPhone, Android, and your computer. You can use them as it is, and our app is much more better than that. It's not mandatory. You don't need to put all your information on it. You just can call the taxi. You can see the taxi coming to you. You can pick up. You can pay the taxi.
For the record, why don't you just tell us right now what the web app is? Give us the address.
Hi, Tibor Hangel, 700 Memorial Drive, Cambridge,
Just
to
to
139.
record. Tibor.
Tibor. Okay. Basically, there's a app that we built thinking of the independent driver out there. There's a couple other apps in Cambridge, and the idea would be that people that don't want to be 100% radio active drivers, but in my opinion, all the taxi cabs should be required to be on a dispatch service or on an app. There should be a basic service like the one we had built, and at the conclusion of having all these apps working, the idea would be that there would be a united joint app at the end where if checker cannot dispatch a call, it goes into the app pool. If ambassador cannot dispatch a call, it goes into the app pool. If from Star Taxi or iTaxi, the job cannot be dispatched, it goes into the app pool and it instantly gives it to the closest cab. And then we have to, if this model works, we need to move to a state level program where this is idea, and once it's up and functioning and we got all the bugs out of it, we gotta go nationwide for the taxi industry. That's the only way we're gonna really.
And if I'm a potential customer and I wanted to download the app, where do we go?
iTaxi Cambridge.
What's that?
iTaxi Cambridge.
iTaxi Cambridge.
Okay. iTaxi Cambridge. And it's up and running. We're going to be meeting later today to do a demonstration for the license commission, and hopefully we'll get their approval and move forward, because we need a unified app. We need the services of ambassador and checker where they have large charge accounts, but there goes a certain amount of overhead that they have to bear, and they have to pass it on to their customers, which is perfectly understandable. But there should also be an app where the drivers want to pick up, they don't want to get involved with charge accounts, they want to service customers, and this is going back to the basics where, why was the medallion issued? The medallion was issued not for drivers to sit on the stand and go to sleep. The medallion was issued to service the general public. If they're not on a radio service, they're just sitting there sleeping. No wonder they're not making money.
So we're going to go to Councilman Governor.
Sorry, sir, I missed a couple things. I just went on the app. Couple things on the hotel. A lot of our cab driver have a problem, and I would know that I was also email you. Hotel Marlow, Lee Meridian, Charles Hotel, especially Hotel Marlow and Meridian. They're shaking down our cab driver. I've been testifying, and people are gonna testify. A cab driver is standing there. He passing the job to delivery guys, even is not pre-booking on those things. A cab driver says a word, you call the Hackney division, it says, get out of here, I'm gonna call the Hackney. So you couldn't do anything, so we need the help, and to call those people to help him, please.
So for the record, could you spell your last name, please?
Shirczay.
You want to submit your comments for the record?
Yeah,
You can email them to us, or you can...
sure, why not? Not a problem.
I have one quick question before we go to George and Councilman Governor. So this app, one of the issues as well is we have a number of elderly buildings across the city, and many of the elderly have traditionally relied on cab service, but many of them do not have smartphones.
Oh, we definitely have a 24-hour to answer phone calls. That's what's so beautiful about this app.
But what I'm also hearing is that system is antiquated, right? The dispatch system. So if we were to think a little bit innovative, and let's say we were to put human-sized smartphones in every lobby in all the elderly buildings, where they can dispatch through the app a cab, and maybe we can set a rate special for the elderly. Let's say that comes out of the working. Again, what we want to think about is we want to think a little bit outside the box, right? So we want to continue to support your services, and we want you to continue to have your customer base, and a big part of that base is the elderly community here in the city that still rely on the taxi cabs. Okay. So as we think about this work within the working group, we want to talk about how we can continue to support the elderly, their transportation needs through your service. Okay. So I'm just curious. Go ahead.
Okay. I was just answering some of the other questions. I do have a couple of comments. I research for several years on this, Uber has this policy in the cloud that nobody's seen. To current date, Uber is paying out of their own pocket for any claim that arise, and they don't really pay anything out unless there's litigation, which is not the way insurance companies are regulated or do business. If they don't reply to the subpoena, then it just tells you that they shouldn't be doing business. And just like in New York laid the law down and said, livery plates, criminal background check, fingerprinting for the drivers, and what did they do? They folded and they went ahead and complied with the law. Thank you very much.
Thank you. George, before we go to this, we're going to go to Councilman Governor, you first, and then Councilman Simmons.
I was, in terms of the app, I know that right now the customer cannot pay through the app, but that's coming, right, at some point. And I do think, the comments about the marketing piece, I mean, I certainly think that individual counselors can, I don't think the city necessarily is going to do a marketing campaign, but I think that this is where, when Mr. Carboni talked about being unified, this is where the rubber meets the road, so to speak, right? It's easy to be unified against an enemy. It's easy to be unified and say Uber is bad and we have to do this, but every single cab driver needs to be on that app at some point, right? And that's, this is about your survival, and anybody who doesn't want to adjust, then you're not gonna survive. And I want you to survive, and everybody in this room wants you to survive. And so every single cab driver out there in Cambridge needs to be part of this, because at the end of the day, if I use an app, but it still takes me 15 minutes to get a cab, and I can get an Uber in 2 minutes, it's not going to help. So and then the marketing for you guys, there should be, I'm glad to see there was an article in the paper, about the app. There should be marketing, it's $500 to run an ad in the Chronicle every month. You should be running about how good you are. Not just that Uber's bad, but you have the green cars, right? You have the fixed pricing. You do go through the training. You are Cory checked. Those are all things that make you better. But those aren't the things that the public is aware of. So that's where you guys have to come together and be united. Is what is your united message about why you're better?
Sir, I would like to just know one thing. We are friendly, try to be friendly app. We do not gonna running dictatorship. Here, good things. George have a choice. Checker have a choice. If they want to join us, they're welcome. If they don't want it, we're not gonna force anybody. We have a friendly app. So just want to make sure we have a friendly app. We're not gonna go around pushing people around. This is the app, you need to be joined, okay? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Chair. Mr. Chair, a question, a statement to follow up on. I'm sorry, I don't remember your last name. That I want to broaden it as we appoint this working/advisory group, which I, just to expedite things, I think should report to the city manager and come then back to the council. One thing we have to look at is the hotel/hospitality industry, because the gentleman is right. What I have found, I'm not going to name the area, but I know this as a fact where a person wanted to go to the airport and the concierge called a Somerville cab and said to the patron, they'll be here quicker. And that's a problem. So when we talk about this working group, I think someone should be from the hotel/hospitality industry. And when I say hotel/hospitality, I want to include the inns, the B&Bs, including Airbnb, which is something they need to have a hearing on. But through you, Mr. Chair, to Ms. Lind, my understanding is a taxi cab cannot pick up a fare in our city. Is that not correct?
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. However, you as the customer have the option of phoning a cab from anywhere. For a hotel to do that, I would take issue with that and would want to contact that hotel, most definitely, and speak with the president of the Hotel Association.
Council Simmons, that's a really important point. If I just may just share this story. Around 5 o'clock this morning, I saw a Boston cab on Mass Avenue, Porter Square, picking up an Uber customer. So, that's the loophole. Because if you have a Boston cab that's also an Uber vehicle, that cab can now come into Cambridge and be justified in picking somebody up. Okay, so that's something that's...
Thank you for raising that, because I don't want to go back to your testimony, but I just want to make sure that this loophole is on record and that we look at it, because it's not so much hotels, and thank you, Ms. Lip, for your answer. It's these buildings, of which there are several now, where you go through the concierge, so you don't necessarily call the cab yourself or ask for it yourself, but you actually go to the concierge because they're parking your car and say, I'm going to need a cab, and they're not calling Cambridge cabs. And so that, I think, is something that we have to...
I'm almost wondering if we can, because I think what I've also heard from many of you guys previously is that the police department is somewhat reluctant to enforce a lot of the rules and regs on the books right now. But let's say if we were to put something in place now that would ban any Brookline cab or Somerville cab or Boston cab from picking somebody up through one of the networks in Cambridge, is that something that you guys would see that's helpful? Because maybe we can include that in the motion. No. Okay, I want to just... Okay, guys, we got a pretty civil meeting. I'm going to go to George and I'll come back around to you guys, okay? George was next.
Okay, first of all,
Mr. Chair, thank you for having us this morning. My name is George Fiorenza, 184th Street, Cambridge, Mass. I sent the Vice Mayor an email on Monday explaining that I think the taxi industry does want to help. We all want to come together. I'm not here to represent Ambassador or Yellow. I'm here to represent the cab driver. As many, even though some people don't think that, I do. The times have changed. Business has changed. It's all that. It's all that. And that's what it's going to go to. So, a couple things that I sent the Vice Mayor an email on Monday explaining that I think the taxi industry does want to help. We all want to come together. I'm not here to represent Ambassador, the Yellow. I'm here to represent the cab driver. As many, even though some people don't think that, I do. The times have changed. The dispatch business has changed. It's all that. It's all that. And that's what it's going to go to. So, what have to happen is that when you establish this board, I think you need travel and tourism. I think you need the Cambridge police. I'm sorry.
You have a singing voice, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I think what you need is you need travel and tourism, Cambridge police, the hotel industry, a representative that represents the elderly, and to talk about where are the needs. Having 257 cabs in this city that has grown many folds, we all know it's not enough. And that's why Uber's in. The reason why people can't get picked up is because 257 cabs can't service this entire community. It's not enough. So to do that, what do? Do you add more medallions? Right now you can't, because who's going to buy them? No one is. I think that the app would work well. There's actually a nationwide app called Flywheel that an organization that I belong to, the MRTA, we are beta testing right now in the state. What does that do? It opens up every cab in the state to pick up everywhere. So whether you're in Cambridge or Boston or at the airport, if you're a licensed taxi with a medallion, you should have the right to pick up everywhere. So that if you're from Cambridge and you drive somebody down to Braintree and someone uses the app because Braintree's too busy and you're the next cab there, you can take that fare. That's where we have to be, and that's how we'll compete with Uber. I agree with you. Uber's not going to go away. Unless we regulate them the correct way, they're not going to go away. So, like T-Boy said, plating, insurance, I think it's going to happen. I also agree with Mr. Hernandez. You got to limit the amount of TNCs that can come into the city. Because if you allow the TNC to come in, well, what's to stop them by having 2,000 cars there? And all 257 cabs are back to square one. So I'm in favor for the app. Even though we have one, check it out, whatever, but having that app that every cab driver has to belong to makes sense. Because if a corporation calls Checker and they're too busy and they go to that app, all the other cab drivers go into it, whoever's free will pick it up. I can tell you that Flywheel will be doing a major campaign if it works well. And so are other nationwide apps that are coming in because they see the need. So that's the one that I like. I think it works well, but there's other ones that are coming in. So even though David mentioned one, I'm sure it's still in beta testing. You got to get this thing up running quick. Not 6 months, not a year, like now. I urge the committee to really think about maybe removing flat rates. Some of the flat rates we have in the city are very low. Drivers are taking people out of Cambridge to north of metropolitan Boston. And when you run the meter, it's double the flat rate. So could you imagine the amount of money that the drivers are losing? I'm not saying the flat rates from the hotels to the airport. That's a different story. I'm talking about beyond. And it's something that we've addressed for 19 years I've been in this business. So I urge you to look at the flat rates, maybe eliminating the flat rates, and let the drivers run the meter and get paid what they deserve. Also, maybe talk about the kind of cars that we have. Have a partnership with the city to change the vehicles like we did the hybrid campaign. That was about, when Medallion 257 was sold, the proceeds were supposed to do that, and something happened, I don't know. But maybe there's something that the city can work with us to say, okay, we'll help you put a new car on that's 2 years or less, help with the funds, and then continue on. Now you have a new car, it's brand new, the consumer will enjoy being in that cab. I think maybe we got to talk about also limiting the amount of new cars that we sell, maybe to 10% of the amount of medallions that you have in that city. So if we have 257 cabs, only 25 TNCs can come in at all times. And if the TNCs provide the information, they can spit out a report that tells you how many jobs they've done at that time. So I think that's the way to go if you want to compete. You cannot allow TNCs to just come in and not limit what they have. But I think there's a lot of things that we can do. Currently, I think you should have the Cambridge Police enforce the rules that are there now. Plain and simple. Plain and simple. The rules state that the Cambridge Police are supposed to enforce the rules that are there now. So I don't understand why police officers are telling me that they don't know what to do. So I think first and foremost, enforce the rules you have. Establish the committee that will go in and make the modifications to bring the taxi industry to the right place. But first and foremost, I urge you to enforce what you get. Thank you.
Thank you, George. I'm going to go to Mike. We have one more. We're going to go to public comment after these next two speakers. Just going to need you to limit your comments to 1 minute because we need to have council discussion so we can actually get something accomplished. So if you could be as brief as possible, Mike. I'm sorry, you're one of the last ones, but go right ahead. Mike.
Okay, I'll get down to I'll do this in, 1 minute? You want to give me that?
Not for you, I'm talking about when I go up.
Oh, okay. All right, my name is Michael Gervais. I live at 60 Mount Vernon Street in Somerville. Over 20, Richard Carbone has said he's the president of the Cambridge Taxi School. He's been president of that for nearly 20 years. The taxi school is almost a little bit older than that. I'm the founder of the Cambridge Taxi School, which is older, a little bit older than that. For the council, any council that's that old and was around when that was founded, that was a driver's effort. And threw a bunch of drivers got together, said it was a good idea. And this is a world-class city, so we all got together and founded the school. From that and many, many other things, including many resolutions, drivers got together. Cambridge drivers did, to try to improve the city. not just something out of the blue that the council did. This was a bunch of drivers that got together and said, hey, transportation, not just Uber, not just, hey, we're in trouble. No, we all had gotten together and we're talking about, you know, we want to talk about the future of Cambridge and transportation, because there's a whole bunch of things happening. There's a transformation in this century, and we're going to look at things and try to make some changes, review the past, and see where we're going to go from here. Okay, I think the very first thing we have to do is review what we can do as far as our responsibilities go, and not just the drivers, and not about re-gentrifying ourselves and cleaning up our act and seeing if we can stop Uber or do this or that. I think the council has to take a look at itself too. And I know everybody else was kind of afraid to say that they didn't want to do that, but I'm not. And I really think the council has to review its responsibilities to the drivers of the city of Cambridge. And I think the council has to look at, maybe in the past number of years, I know they've gone to court a few times and they've done some things, but there's also been a kind of a lack of enforcement, lack of a lot of resolutions and stuff too. Ideas about going forward, what I think is really strong, what we need to do. I agree with George and what some of the other fellows said. We have to enforce regulations that are currently on the board. I'm glad Jack Albert's here because of what a lot of people have been. We have a problem with people picking up all the time on corners and stuff. And one of the things is when people talk about apps and we want to compete and be like Uber and be on a level playing field, we have to understand one thing. One thing we can't do, and they can't do, is that Uber loves to go and pick up illegally, everywhere in every corner, illegally in the middle of the street and everything else. We're going to get apps and do the same thing? No, we can't, because it's not safe. And that's what we're going to have to understand. And when we regulate, we're going to have to tell people if they're going to pick up, they got to pick up safely. They got to pick up, that's the thing. And when Ubers come over to cab stand, out. And my guys kicked them out, and that's the way it is. Big thing is the council has got to really help us out with media support. That's why I asked for internet, and we need help with a hard copy too. Is we have to tell people about Uber, tell people about some of the things across the board. I'll give you a couple of quick examples. With Uber, everybody knows already about how the customer gets to rate the driver. So many times they fire the driver. But you also know that the driver gets to rate the customer. What happens is Uber drivers network, just like cab drivers do. They know other Uber drivers, and they play in certain areas. What happens is, if it's a $5 job, the job kind of stinks and it's in the morning or it's outside in the morning, and it really doesn't pay much, word gets around. So if I'm picking up Wally and he goes to work every day and it's only a $5 job, well, I'll tell Nelson, or I'll tell Dave, or I'll tell T. Morgan, all these guys, when we go, well, we'll give them a good ride, but you know what we'll say, Wally was drunk, he was this and he was vulgar and he was rude. Well, after 4 or 5, 6 comments like that, when Wally calls up Uber, he goes to use Uber, well, he's caught. He doesn't get a ride anymore, because Uber gets rid of customers too. And it's just another way they go. I had a person from France, one last example. They're afraid to use Uber because they give addresses and phone numbers. And one person that I had was a surgeon. And when he complained about a ride that he had, he was, I guess, the last straw that got the person fired. And he came to go use his car the next day, and the tires were slashed. And he had gotten a rude phone call. When he called the police, then all these questions, and they couldn't prove anything or anything else. So it's an issue about that. And people kind of don't like the way the privacy is used. Cab drivers don't get people's phone numbers and things like that. And that kind of stuff is there. I strongly recommend that we let the public know and inform them a lot about Uber. Convenience is one thing, safety is another, and privacy is still yet another. Also, what Mr. Tibor brought up is kind of important too. And George had brought up about the flat rates. The flat rates haven't been changed in a long time. And also, we had some major storms last year. And when Uber was going and bringing people to the airport for $100 and New Year's Eve, and they also brought people for expensive rides. Major storms, and we're getting $27 to bring someone, and it's taken almost 2 hours to bring somebody there. We have to have different rates for inclement weather and things like that. It's only realistic, and that's something that's definitely got to be looked into. Also, I'm very glad to say that traffic and parking in the Hackney department with Benny Zito and Tony Arcos are starting to work with us because they're picketing people and they're towing. And these are things that have to be done. A lot more of it has to be done because it wasn't being done as much before, but it's starting to happen now. Because the more it gets done, the less these people are parking on our stands, the less these people are doing stuff, and it's a move in the right direction. You know, I wish there was a lot more of it, but they're doing it now. And we need more and more Jack's help, but he's behind us, you know. I mean, we scream and complain, and I've always been the Jack's here, but it's going to get there. It's going to get there, and this is what we got to do. As far as the committee goes, we also need some help from banks, like was also brought up, because when these guys want to re-gentrify and we want to compete and we want to be on this level playing field that you're talking about, we're going to need help so people can refinance their medallions. Right now, their medallions are worth nothing. So if they wanted to refinance or do something like this and get a new car, how are they going to afford to do it? So the city, like I said, has got some responsibilities here, and the city's got to find a way to do this. Okay? Thank you.
Thank you, George.
Mike?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Okay, George.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Thank you, councilors. I guess pretty much just was said, but by the time my turn came up, everything was said. My name is Wally Nahul, and I'm the owner of Cambridge Checker Cab.
That's not always a bad thing.
103 Cambridge, Mass. 12141. Save the bands, okay. You know, everybody talks about leveling the playing field. The field is not going to be level 100% because of the cost. Because as people said, insurance and the cost of the medallion. Now, people who drive Uber X, and when they use their private vehicles, they don't have the overhead that taxi owners or drivers who ever have. Taxi does have. There is no way. Even if they regulate them, our cost is more. So why did you make extra prices? Because there is no overhead, and they want to, and the market is so saturated with them. That's what people say, well, you use the app. Just by using the app doesn't guarantee that you're going to get the cab or the car right away, because they get it right away because of the saturation of the market. There are thousands of them at every corner. At every corner. That's why the service is so fast with them. If the number is so limited, people are going to find out they're not going to get the speed that they used to get it right now. There is no way. So, and also, if the city wants to, for example, we should enforce universal app. I'm not at 100%. And it should be mandatory for everybody. It should be mandatory for every driver. Okay? That's the only way to get ahead. We have to limit the number of the outsiders that are registered somewhere else that they in the city of officer sitting, standing there, and he sees something illegal going on, and cannot do anything about it? How do you think that police officer would feel if his or her hands are tied? They cannot enforce the law that I paid to you. Okay, so that's pretty much everything was the same, it's sad. And the insurance, to be honest with you, when I went to the hearing yesterday, and I was listening to that lady from the insurance department, the insurance thing. Honestly, for a second, I thought she was like waiting for me. I thought she was looking for lift. She was on lift talking like that. You know what I mean? I mean, she was saying that those people, if they want to, for example, they can have insurance flip the switch. But can we let it in taxi? Like for example, I have no driver on it, or at night, where the guy goes in at 8 o'clock, just flip the switch, no insurance on it at night. We pay the insurance cost. We then over one time $12,000 a year on each vehicle. Okay? How can we there is no way. You can. So the city has to get involved. They have to get involved and they have to enforce the rules and regulations that already exist. They have to deliver everything. Okay? That's very much the rule of, I think it's sad.
Thank you. We are going to hear very briefly from Councilor Mazin and Councilor Chong. Let's go to public comment. We really only have about 25 minutes left of this hearing, which means that if the members of the public that would like to speak, you're going to be limited to about a minute or two. Okay, because we need an opportunity to discuss this issue so we can resolve the motions and vote on them. So, quickly go to Councilor Mazin.
I'm giving you all a half-baked idea, but I feel the need to put it out there because I have a strong feeling that even once we come to consensus on regulating Uber in the city, and the state has a consensus bill, I feel like taxis are still going to be at a competitive disadvantage. I feel like what we've said about the convenience, about the ways that they can skirt things, even when there is law, and even when there is enforcement, I think taxis, the industry needs to have some upward pressure, not just downward pressure on medallion prices. I don't know how to do that. I don't know how the city can make up for years of implementing a bad system that honestly, not just the cities, all cities have kind of done it this way. It's an outmoded system that just unfortunately lasted too long. I think, I'm going to propose this. This is not a good idea in its present form. I'm just going to put it out there so we can start the brainstorming. I don't think we have the money for a medallion buyback. I don't think the city can just substantiate $100 million to buy every medallion back. Nor do I think that every medallion owner wants to sell right now. But I think there are a few who want to get out of their investment and feel like they have been tricked into, fallen into, gotten into something that's way too financially intense for them. They need an out. They need an out so they can get their principal back and not lose money, at least. Perhaps we tie this to some value in the housing development scheme where we say developers can take an extra XYZ, they need to collect 5 medallions. 5 medallions gives them this much value, and if it's worth $2 million, $2.5, $3 million to them, maybe they can pay what the market rate for medallions was before the market collapsed. Maybe you can do this 4 or 5 medallions at a time. That might give some confidence to the market, and the market would begin to buy and trade these over time on their own, and we would create some kind of support structure, not for the whole medallion market, but for parts of it, especially for those who need to get out now. I don't think the way I phrase it that that's going to be feasible, but there's something there, there's some value there that developers can bring, that others can bring, if people want to get out of it. So that's all I had to say. It might not be the best idea, but I want to put it out there in case colleagues have ideas, in case this can go somewhere, because we absolutely can't just front the cash. And when I say developers, I mean real estate developers doing luxury towers, not software developers doing apps.
Thank you, Councilor Martin. Councilor Chung.
Yeah, I'm just going to echo, I guess the question that was raised already about the, I guess I'll turn the mic off. I guess one of the things is we've been trying for a while just having only certain officers are enforcing at taxi stands and pickups. This also goes, I think, to bikes as well, but in terms of like having more of our patrol doing the enforcement stuff. Just wanted to get those in for the committee. Or if there's any response now.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I know we're going to go to public comment to hear from the rest of the industry. And I know you said about 25 minutes. I do have to leave at 12:30. So what I wanted to offer before I had to leave was, first of all, I wanted to thank the members of the industry for coming and working with us to solve this problem, because I do see it as shared partnership as we work towards solutions. The second thing I wanted to say, I did want to put forward a motion that we do have a working committee that reports to the city manager in an advisory capacity. The reason why I want to send it to the city manager and not to the city council, because it's so hard to get on a council agenda to do the work. I want the work to move forward expeditiously, very, very quickly. That advisory committee, and I think someone here already mentioned some of the people that should be on it, but I do want to make sure that we include the hotel and hospitality industry in it. I want some consumers on it. I want members of the taxi industry on that committee. So I'd say the composition of the committee should be include but not limited to the hotel, hospitality industry, travel and tourism, the cab industry, the consumer industry. So they're not that they're in the industry, but consumers, people that actually use cabs, should be there to talk to and lend their support. The financial industry, to what degree? Because we're going to need the benefit of knowing what the financial industry, and that does include insurance if you can get it, could be there. I'm not saying that's the entire representation, but I think it certainly should be, city staff is a given, but I certainly think it should be large enough to do its work, but certainly representative of people that have an interest in this particular question. And it's not just about what we do now, it's how can we be forward thinking? How do we plan for a decade ahead? Because things continue to evolve, and if we do not evolve with it, we end up getting left behind. So that would be my motion to lay on the table, to be modified as you see fit, Mr. Chair, but I wanted to make sure that got in if I had to leave, because 12:30 is sort of when I must take my leave, and I apologize for having to leave at 12:30, but I want to thank you, because if you're sitting here, you're not sitting out there making money, so I get that, so I appreciate your time to be here with us today. The second thing is I want us to exert our subpoena power to get a copy of that insurance policy. We've got to know what's in that policy, and who's the company, and what's the limit, and who it insures. That's just extraordinarily important for us to know. And then the last thing, I don't know if it should be in council. We already said that we put a council order that talks about the expedience. I'll have Mr. Alpert work on that. But the other problem that we have is we have to reach out to our concierge buildings, I know what else to call them, to make sure that management is in line, that we do business, you're in Cambridge, you do business in Cambridge, and to capture and correct, to the degree possible, this practice of calling taxis that do not work or belong into Cambridge. That's absolutely unacceptable. It's not something new. It's just something that we have not turned our attention to. So this is our time to get these buildings in line. And it's the management, we're going to talk to the management that has to talk to the concierge and say, if you are asked to call a cab, it has to be a Cambridge cab, because that's what we want to protect, support the industry. Knowing that, because the concierge shouldn't be doing it. If I do it as an individual, that's another thing. But a concierge should be at least, I'm not saying they're doing it to be vicious or even be unkind. They might, I know so-and-so, he drives for Andover and he's a good guy, so I'm going to call him. He has to drive by 10 Cambridge cabs to get to the building. So I want us to tighten up that loophole.
Just to clarify the language a little bit on that. So let's say we identify X number of concierge buildings in the city. Are we asking that the License Commission send a letter to those buildings requesting that they follow the law?
Well, see, actually, you can't say follow the law, because they should. I don't know, really that is in Cambridge. We don't want that person calling a cab outside of Cambridge, and I don't know what the language is. And the doorman thing, we'll say all hotel employees that are authorized or engaged in ordering cab service for the patrons should be strongly advised to only call a cab that works and operates in Cambridge.
But they would still have the right to call TNC, would be the next one, because, I mean, most, you can't really prevent them from doing that.
That I don't know what the, I don't want to. Right.
I'm talking with the network company, transportation network.
Right. What he's saying is he doesn't want the concierge to do that. If I, the patron, want to do that, that's, you can't stop it. But we want to discourage the concierge who may get a tip for calling a
So in other words,
TNC.
there's two parts to this, right? One is to discourage them from calling a cab from outside the city, it's one piece, right?
Right.
But also encouraging them to make sure that they call a Cambridge cab as opposed to a TNC. Does that make sense?
Mr. Chair.
One second. We want to get most of the time. Okay.
So I would say, Mr. Vice Mayor, if you mind, the clerk, our very able clerk, has the essence of those orders. And it's always been practiced to say, get the essence of the order, we fine-tune it with the clerk once we gather all the information. So if you would allow that, Mr. Chair, she has the basic, the background. Don't call a cabinet analysis in Cambridge. And then it might be two separate motions. We discourage you, the concierge or doorman, to call a TNC.
We're going to lose one member of our committee shortly. Mary Hazel Falter is Wild Foreign.
Yeah, I can stay, but I would just say one thing. It's not just discouraging them from calling the TNC. It's also, from what I heard, is them hailing TNCs that are parked near the hotel, right? So they may not, that loophole will be, well, I didn't call, they were right there, and I don't. So we need to remind these hotels that that is not what the law allows them to do. And so it's more than just discouraging, it's following the law that you cannot hail a TNC.
Thank you.
Right, so I would include that.
And the only other person I would add to the list of who we talk specifically to is the management company. Because the concierge and the bellman and et cetera and so forth do the bidding often of the management company who manages that building. So I will work that out with Madam Deputy Clerk in terms of fine-tuning that language. That's the general essence of it.
And I would recommend, Mr. Chair, that once those letters go out, that, our police officers or our license commission, whoever it falls under, pays a few visits, because the letter is going to do one thing, but what's really going to make a difference is when you find them and you hand them the pocketbook or whatever it is that whatever discipline we can put on them. So once those letters go out, let's get out there and enforce it.
Just another piece of it, the draft legislation that we promulgated at the state level prevents any TNC from being hailed on the street, and it's a significant fine. I believe it's around $10,000 that they're caught doing that. So I think it's within our right to go ahead and say to them now, you should not be hailing a TNC in front of a hotel or in front of a concierge building or anything like that. So I think we include all that information in this particular letter to make sure that gets out to you. So, Deputy Clerk, you want to go ahead and start?
Council Simmons made a motion that the city manager be and hereby is requested, or is it the committee, for a working committee that reports to the city manager in an advisory fashion, which would include hotel and hospitality, some consumers, members of the taxi industry, travel and tourism, as well as customers.
And the financial district.
And,
Financial district.
financial.
TNC just has that here, and also as far as consumers, we want to make sure that we have a representative from the uses and population.
Flesh out the exact words.
City staff, which I assume is a given, but
On the motion, all in favor, say aye.
I think they're called shared
From
vehicles.
the TNC. On the motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Third motion.
Third motion, I have Council Simmons that we reach out to concierge buildings and management companies to ensure that management is in line with the school of thought that if in Cambridge use local services. That's the gist of it.
And then
Yeah,
they
we'll
be,
work on the wording, but just for the sake of the meeting, local license service.
right, and one important piece, just so we don't forget, is discouraging them from hailing any TNCs. Oh, yeah. Bifurcated, okay.
Yeah,
All right, so go ahead.
so that motion passed.
On the third motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Fourth motion.
And the last one I have is that all town employees authorized to order cabs to be strongly discouraged and advised to only call a cab who works in Cambridge and encourage that the Cambridge cab which would include handling TNCs. We need to work on that language.
So basically, therefore be ordered that concierge buildings and its employees, including the management staff, are not to participate in calling cabs or TNC, calling cabs that do not work and operate in Cambridge, and further, that a concierge door person or management company is strongly discouraged to hail a TNC that is on the street, probably two basic.
I would just include any hotels, so it would be concierge building as well as the hotel, because I understood that many of the developers at the hotels also hail TNCs that are sometimes parked with you guys, and oftentimes that creates.
Mr. Chair, I would just, my understanding is that it's against current city regulations, it's against the law to hail a cab. So instead of, I would just say make it stronger. Instead of strongly discouraging, I would say further that they are reminded that it is against the law and subject to fines,
Enforcement and very high instant penalties.
for hailing, because we want to make sure that they understand that what they're doing is not allowed.
That's fine. That's
On the fourth motion, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed, no, and the ayes have it. We are, Council Marlin? Okay, we are going to quickly move to public comment. Let me get a show of hands. How many of you want to speak? Okay, so I'm going to limit your comments to 2 minutes. That we clerk can assist me with this. What we can do is I'll hear from you first, and then the others can step up to the mic once. You already addressed that.
Yeah, that was
That's
the
part of
motion.
My name is Eugene Belville. I live at 15 Homefield Ave in Apple. And I'm here on behalf of PTDA, Consultancy Drivers Association. And I was part of the conversation yesterday, and I heard everything that I need to hear is the moving forward. We live in a time that technology is important. It's the driving force of every business out here and beyond being business. But I totally agree with the Council Seven, and thank you very much for your approach on that and for your understanding of what is going on. Now we have a problem. The problem that from what we hear, we have about the discussion about insurance and Uber problem. We have a problem. We officials, we have a problem today. Since yesterday, you heard it clear and loud, that Uber is not insured. The product they are selling is not in Massachusetts at all. So you as an official, that you have a duty, you have a responsibility, and more responsibility take your responsibility as I heard the Councilor Zami says. Today, as of today, you should call upon stop on TNC, not because we don't want TNC, for safety issues, because of safety of the public. While we speak, we don't know what's going on out there. Maybe in the next 24 hours, your daughter, your cousin, might get into a job. And who will be responsible? The cities. Because we as public, we as servants, we as cab drivers are not responsible. We cab drivers, we are here since, some of us are here since 1930, since 40 years. We took your parents home, we took your parents to the hospital, we did it with no problem. So we have a moral. This Massachusetts is leading a cause right now. We have to set the tone now. We need to set the tone, and the tone is tackle the issues as they should, as they need. It's an immediate concern for the public. It's an immediate concern within the industry. I heard the word move forward. I like it. I love it. I'm forward. But in a positive manner, if we need to tackle any issues, we need to set the tone right now and come back with the issue with us, with the TNC business. Because now, out there now, a young girl, his life, her life can be in danger. And the next 24 hours again, in the next life, you don't know who's home. So now it's imperative, with the common sense, that we all immediately stop from cars invading not only Cambridge, it's everywhere. You have Cambridge, I have people that are studying from it's imperative that we do that right now. And secondly, I heard that Council Manson saying that, not Manson, is, what's his name? Manson. And mentioned that we need to have, take away, or the banking commission, the banking committee need to realize that, look at how we're going to move forward with the medallion system. There's no way that you can take away the medallion system. That's the wrong way, that's a bad way. Don't even think about it, because it's a job. Well, this is something that I want to talk about more, but I wanted to hear everybody else. But I think that in another time that I will come and speak loudly and clearly, and more specifically on the issues that need to be taken under consideration. Thank you very much for giving me the time.
Again, be reminded that this is just the beginning. There's a lot of work to do, and you're going to have an opportunity to work within the group that has been designated as of today.
Thank you, sir.
Who's the first public comment? Okay, once you step up to the mic, if you could. Again, you have 2 minutes, and I'm going to shut you right at 2 minutes if you don't finish. Turn the mic on, please.
My name is Jean-Claude Pardon. I live at 30 Lincoln Road, Massachusetts. I own and operate a caravan in Cambridge. I'm here we are regulated. And there's a law for that. If I was out there, the cop find me in the car, no stick, sticker. My registration is expired, or no insurance, they're gonna tow the car. Send it to storage, collect the money, until I come with the proper document, legal document to take the car. I don't know what's wrong. We give TNT, if we're talking about safety, TNT should not be on the road.
Sir, you're forcing your time's up, okay? You have 2 minutes. Can I get just a show of hands up? Who else wants to speak? Okay, please keep in mind that a lot of the issues that you may be speaking about have already been addressed by the council, including the issue around insurance. So for the sake of time, unless you have something new to add, I suggest that we move to close this hearing. I'm going to hear from everyone, but again, let's not repeat everything that has already been said. Okay? Your time is up, sir. I'm going to go to the next gentleman.
Thank you, Mr. Vice Mayor. Thank you, Ms. Lin. Thank you to all the city councilors here. Thank you. I feel that your hearts that you want to help us. Thank you for all the things that they are very much.
Even after the word.
Thank you. Sorry, it's Gustavo Hernandez from the Specialist in Cambridge. First of all, I'd like to see, if it's possible, in the committee that you form, to include a real taxi driver in the community. People that really know, that drive around and see and have the feeling of what is going on around the business. Second, I don't know exactly how to put it, but it's a shame that things have happened that far. But for instance, we're talking about these NPC, PNC companies. However, there is another thing, another subject. How is possible that the city admits to put bicycles in front of the car stand? It's an unfair competition. I've seen customers that go there, grab a car, they see that there's a bicycle rack there. Oh, let's get a ride, bike. Right? It's an unfair competition. It's a $90 a year membership versus what? How much is a year for a taxi? So it's not fair. Another thing that is very important is that the committee, you decided about 2 months ago to make a study on what was going on with the pollution from these PNC companies. We haven't had anything yet. What is the impact, the traffic, the pollution, everything? I would like to hear that part too. It's very important that we get informed. You have addresses, I give mine now, anything else, through emails, is probably the most effective way. Thank you so much, and thank you to all of you, because without your support, we can do anything. Thank you so much.
Good afternoon. My name is Kuldeep Singh and I live at 11 Broad Street, Somerville, West.
Can you just spell your name for the record, please?
Kuldeep Singh, Kuldeepsingh. And I've been a taxi driver for 20 years in Cambridge. We got all the other things, but the major issue is here, how can we stop these private cars coming from out of states? The people come from New Hampshire, Connecticut, Rhode Island. They work here with Uber. How is it public safety issue? Would the city allow somebody come bring a van of liquor, park on the corner, and sell for $10, which is liquor store selling for $20? Is that fair? Is that fair? You have a license number, and then the same thing, and then below the license, somebody giving you a cheap service. This is not fair. We need to stop those private cars. People come from New Hampshire, so that's why we need a delivery plate. And then the Uber said, we cannot afford a delivery plate, we cannot pay. A single poor person like me owns 1 medallion in a $1 billion company. Why they cannot afford delivery plate and the commercial insurance? This bothers me. We compare here horses with the donkeys. They look same, but they cannot do the same work. I am licensed at
take classes 5 days. I passed the 3 tests, English, geography, and the mathematics. And the Uber drivers, they don't. Is that fair to the taxi industry? I don't think so. So we need to focus. We need to focus to stop these all private cars. I think why are we scared from that bullying? Uber is bullying everybody. They buy the people. They have lobbyists in the White House. And then everybody is scared from them. I don't know why. We need to enforce the happy law we are in here. Nobody can do this business without a happy plate or the liberty plate. Anybody cannot do anything.
Your time is up, unfortunately.
Okay, so please enforce that law, please.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Jack Newman. I've been speaking around Cambridge for more than 35 years, and I've been doing it for 33 years. As a matter of fact, I heard when the bus association was like to taking care of the doorbell, concierge, everything like that. I offer myself to be the enforcer because I can bring him. I said that. Unfortunately, they didn't give me a chance because I can clean Cambridge. Yes, I can clean. Because you understand that. Like I said, Uber is still in business of recidivism. Because no one wants to tackle Uber. Like I was there yesterday, I spent all day long at the State House. It's almost impossible to push out $51 billion business. We don't understand that. But by the simple thing, something can be done. If the concept, those responsible for lives, think about it, and then come up with something, because when you negotiate about something, you're not going to win them all, you're going to lose them all, but you're going to come up with something new. So that's what we're asking for. Because it's really ridiculous in Cambridge. All the places around the state, pick it up in Cambridge. One of us, double back, nothing said about it. And then I invite you to swing around like 2 a.m. in the morning or 3 a.m. in the morning and stop at the bar and see young ladies drunk, jump on your car. They don't even know if you will or not. Or you have this name, they jump on your car. So think about it. I mean, every one of you, if you don't have kids, that you have nieces, everything like that. So it's something really important. I want to think about it. And then our faith, it was on you, on your conscience. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who's left? Okay, so we just have 2 more speakers.
Hi, my name is James L. Cavoni Jr., no relation to Cavoni from the Hotel Association. I've had a lot of dealings recently, and I really feel it's unfair to check out the street the way it is by the police force, because I think if we all work together, as we have done through subcommittee meetings, dividing each other isn't going to work. We have to work together. Okay, the industry feels the same way. We want to say thank you to everybody here. Yesterday I went to a meeting, I stayed there for 9 hours and 15 minutes. I watched the police commissioner backstab another police commissioner over this issue. This is a problem. A problem. This society right now is in such need of help. It's unbelievable for everybody, no matter every person alive. The industry is not easy. One way to start to solve this problem is to make the meters throughout the state of Massachusetts the same. It should start the same, and then it should be an act where the city of Cambridge can work with the city of Boston, who's the bigger supplier of the Mid-Atlantic to the state, where they allow the city of Boston to use the unified act. Right now, that's not permitted. That was stated yesterday at the meeting. I stayed here for 9 hours. I listened to the whole story. The whole thing is the big situation. We had subcommittee meetings for years. I've been in this business for how many years? I've argued with Mr. Alberts, I've argued with Ms. Liz, I've argued with Mr. Scott, but we always came to a happy medium, but we ended up, hopefully, trying to solve the problem, work forward. And we're willing to do that with the city council. But the problem is, when some
Sasin, last name S-A-S-S-I-N. I'm a career cab driver and owner. It's about 25 years. The industry is dying. We go through slow motion death. Any way you look at it. We need your help. And the question is how we can help the industry. I really don't know. One thing we can do is we flooded the market now. The state of Cambridge with unlimited number of any car in Union can work as a taxi cab in Cambridge. And there's no need for our medallions. I don't know how many have been thrown at the license commission. At least I know one has been for a year and a half since in 107. Many medallions. There's no need for my medallion. So please buy them back. Because we head into bankruptcy. I feel we are like soldiers, we are ranking soldiers. We follow your rules and regulations for all this time. We went by the book that you wrote. We went by the rules and regulations that set up by you with the Commonwealth of blessing. Now the state's the Commonwealth trying to tell us every private car can be taxi cab in Cambridge. That's fine. Then there's no need for our medallion. Please take them back and give authority to the state to control the transportation industry. Buy them back and we'll be more than happy to do that because we feel we head into bankruptcy and we do anything else. We follow your rules. We are low-level soldiers. We are the generals. And if the political decision coming from the Beacon Hill, let's Beacon Hill take the blame or the responsibility of defending. Government is for the people. Government cannot bankrupt people that work by your rule and your revolution. We follow your rules and we head into bankruptcy. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
AU Works. My name is Gary Mello. I live at 324 Franklin Street in Cambridge. What we have here and now is the here and now. It is illegal to operate a taxi service in Cambridge without the required licensure, permits, and clearances. At the conclusion of this hearing, it is incumbent upon the city manager, license commission, and police department to issue a cease and desist order against Uber at all. It's all about process, folks. Uber has already run the war. Things aren't going to be the same way as they are 2 years from now. But let's just make sure that the new guys have to follow the rules.
Motion by Councilman Government to close public comment. All in favor, say aye. All opposed, no. And the ayes have it. Councilman Government may really quick just have a motion. I'm going to need a little help because there's a couple different issues that have been raised and I didn't have the opportunity to bring this before the body. So I'm going to move that we ask the city manager to confer with the appropriate city departments about the feasibility of limiting the number of Uber cars that operate within city limits. And this is, my hope is that this will give the working group some guidance. This is where we would like to go, and these are some of the gaps that will need to be filled once the state legislature takes action, because this is not addressed in the proposed state legislation. So that's one piece. The second piece would be that we ban any vehicles that are not vehicles from the state of Massachusetts from operating within city limits. And the third one would be that we establish...
Mr. Chair, roll that back a bit. So you want to order that vehicles operating in a...
That's a TNC.
Thank you. So you got to put that in because... Okay.
And then the third one would be that we establish uniform rates within city limits. So in other words, whether you're a TNC or you're a cab, that all rates are uniform if you're going to be operating within the city of Cambridge. There's one that I want to raise at a later date, and hopefully as this work continues, and that is, how we're going to tax, whether it's the taxi industry or TNC, so that we can generate some revenue for oversight. And right now, there's a question as to whether that oversight will take place within a state agency or the local government. But I think as this work continues to evolve, we'll be able to answer some of these questions. And hopefully, what we're planning on doing here in Cambridge is hopefully breathing life into your industry. And my hope is that you will walk away from here today knowing that you have Council Simmons and Councilman Governor and others that are part of this body that want to help you. And we understand that you're struggling, that you're trying to pay your bills, and this is an incredibly complicated issue, but we want you to know that we're here to work with you, and we're going to do everything possible to come up with some innovative solutions that hopefully will lead the way for other governments throughout the Commonwealth, local governments throughout the Commonwealth, as well as the region. So,
I've
did you give us a motion?
I want to move it, because I got to.
1 minute.
So we can
Can I just?
Councilman Governor.
Yeah, so I think I'd like to also get a better understanding of, from the police department about the enforcement piece. And I don't think that you're not going to enforce it all the time, but I'm not necessarily sure you have to. I think, word gets out, and you enforce the fines and you enforce the law enough, then that gets traction. So I want to have and I know the police are doing a million different things, but I want to get a better understanding of why these regulations are not being enforced and what we have to do to enforce them. Because I think the last speaker is right. These guys entered into a contract with us in the city and buying the medallions, and we need to do our part to uphold that side of the contract as well. And if we have people that are operating without the authority to do so, then we have to do that. And I think that I'm not terribly optimistic that how fast the state's going to move on this, because I think it's very powerful, and I want Cambridge to lead the way on this. So I want to understand the enforcement piece better. So I move that we get a report back from the police department as to the enforcement issue and what they can do to enforce the laws that are on the books right now.
Okay, so we'll take the first motion first on the motion regarding uniform rates, the number of cars operating within the city, and out-of-state vehicles that operate for TNC companies operating within the city limits. On that motion, all those in favor say aye. All opposed, no, and the ayes have it. On Councilman Governor's motion to look at the enforcement of the regs that are currently on books. It sounds like what are the complications and what are you able to do and not do, and why? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, no, and the ayes have it. Councilor Chung, you want to add something before we close? No, we're on time. Okay. So I want to, before we close, just want to thank everybody for being here today. Hopefully you feel that we've made some progress. I want to thank city staff and our deputy back there. We didn't get a chance to hear from you today, but I'm sure we will in the future. And let's keep working together to try to come up with some really good solutions. And I want to thank my colleagues. On a motion by Councilor Chung to adjourn, all those in favor say aye.